We're going to talk a little bit about today school Wi-Fi on a bus and or Wi-Fi on a bus and how it extends the classroom. I think we're in a state that is just very suited for it. And when you think about the landscape of where we live, work, play, etc., and the districts that we have in rural communities, etc. But this topic of Wi-Fi on school bus is one that's rapidly growing and expanding across the country. In fact, there are other organizations outside of IT, like co-ops. Land O'Lakes is the biggest one, who is trying to extend the classroom to rural communities through the co-op network. And this is just a gateway of doing that, where we don't have Starlink or other things at the home, so the student can get the work done. The other thing I'll add before I keep jumping ahead is that given the size of our group, if you have questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, just throw them in. I'd like to create a conversation versus a presentation. Okay. As I had mentioned earlier, where this concept of connected transportation and or Wi-Fi on the school bus is really ramping up, is and becoming special, is it's now eRate qualified. And so, where we have the opportunity to write 470s and or assist districts through the tools and resources that are available, there's a way to pay for it now. And that previously had not existed on the eRate schedule, but now does. And that's a big ticket item as we think about connectivity. So Wi-Fi on a school bus, just a couple things to call out that we're seeing. Some stats for you. So in the U.S., the average bus rider spends 42 minutes every day on the school bus each way to school. 42 minutes. That's without any delays. I live in the Carmel Clay School District, and I live 3 miles from the school that my daughter goes to, for example. She is the first pickup on the bus route. She could ride to school with her mom every day, but she wants to be on the school with her friends. And she's an hour on the bus, and it's 3 miles away. So it is not surprising for me to hear the statistics and the data says it's 42 minutes. It's not hard to drive 15 or 20 minutes one way or the other, whether it be Westville, Noblesville, etc., talking about this area, and it's easily an hour. So 42 minutes, just as a stat. And so if you think about 42 minutes just to get to school, I can tell you I recently participated in a field trip with her, and it was an hour and a half on the bus to get to the field, to the field trip each way. So we got to school, we all got on the bus, we rode an hour and a half with a bunch of 5th graders to get to the field trip, did that. So think about it. I mean, this is starting to add up quickly. And what does every kid work on to get their schoolwork done now? No Chromebook, no Chromebook. Recently, I just spent a day subbing, and we didn't have any internet access at the school. You want to talk about a tough day? They were working on the road, and they hit the cable. MetroNet had to come out and fix it, so they didn't have internet access for 2 days. And not, in our case, every kid had internet access at home. But what if somebody didn't? It's like tough day at the office. So 42 minutes. And field trips. So it's not just about expanding the classroom and providing extra study time. It's about bridging the digital divide and securing a way for people to have access to tools and resources to learn. All right. And so as a result, Wi-Fi is now eRate eligibility on the bus. And we believe that we have put together some compelling solutions to do that. And I want to talk a little bit more about how that works and why. So when we think about this, depending on where you live and depending on the school district, This is while you want things in our world to be very standardized, it's not. It's very customized. You have standard boxes, standard switches, firewalls, etc. But when you get a hold of it, you configure it to meet your needs and expectations and to fit your environment. It is really no different. Here is an example of a mock-up that when we talk about how we mount and secure something to a bus, I say that because not every 2 districts has the same brand of bus. Not every 2 districts has new buses versus old buses. So there is a lot of customization that has to go into this work. And so if it's something you have interest in, the best I can tell you is you got to get ahead of it sooner versus later and be pretty broad in the way you write that RFP. Because this box, as an example, may not fit every bus, right? But we've been able to take the hardware or the nuts and bolts of the systems, working with Cisco and Meraki in our particular case, and put together a standardized approach and then build a custom solution around it. And so, for example, this is the power supply. How do I get the line from this power supply to the battery source on the bus? There's no two ways that are going to be the same, right? And so think about that as we enter this marketplace with Wi-Fi on the school bus and transition ourselves into a longer term approach and the cost associated with it. Generally, when things are new to the marketplace, they cost more. We can all say that, right? Whether it's your phone, your TV, your VCR that's now DVD. Oh wait, we don't even use those anymore. But so things to call out. We've got ruggedized versus non-ruggedized solutions. We have, and along with our OEM partners, done everything to be CIPA compliant for eRate. So out of the box and or through bolt-ons, everything's compliant. When we think about protecting kids, mission critical. The last thing we want is for a parent to walk into the school board meeting and or your office and say, what's going on that school bus, right? There's too much YouTube and X and whatever they're doing these days. I can't keep track of it all, but everything's compliant, okay, right out of the box. And then SD-WAN capable, so we can set things up to go back to your network and create an SD-WAN capable extension to the classroom. Right now in the US and or in the Midwest, and to include this market, there are really 3 manufacturers that we would work with and or set you up with to give you the best coverage. T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon. The interesting part about this history is that T-Mobile, owned by Vodafone, was really the first to use a SIM card on a worldwide basis. That was the standard across the globe, not to include the US, up until about 15, 20 years ago. AT&T was the first company in the US to go to the SIM. And then T-Mobile came into the US market right after that. And Verizon was actually the last company to go to the SIM. So now everybody's on the SIM. CDMA, TDMA is gone. That's an advantage because it gives us better coverage. And we're not on 2G, 3G, and everything's standardized 5G platform. I say that, but at the same time, depending on the area that you're in, we'll have to look at which provider has the best coverage. Not any one of them is going to have perfect coverage. And we've gone to more of a bells and whistles philosophy when it comes to choosing a cellular provider, because most of them are using the same towers with a roaming agreement. But all 3 have the capability. And in some cases, we can add modules that can give you both dual SIM if you need it, okay? It just depends on where you're located. Are we going to be able to give you perfect coverage? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I want to make that clear up front. We're not using satellite technology here. This is cell phone technology. Any questions about that? The history of this is just amazing to me. It's like one's always trying to outrun the other, and now it's kind of a universal playing field. And I'm saying that as somebody that used to drink the Kool-Aid. So, all right. Any questions there? I can tell you right now that we are currently working with 4 school districts as of yesterday who are starting to see the need for this in a big way. None of the 4 are in a metropolitan area except for one of them, and that one is using this technology to help students be monitored on and off the bus. So they're overlaying other technologies so that they can check kids in and check kids out through their school student ID. So there are other ways to use the technology, is all I'm really saying. They've got a problem with just kids hopping on any bus at the end of the day. It's like, no, 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 no. Or getting on the wrong bus to get to school. So when you think about ID and where somebody's supposed to be, whether it's radio or cell phone technology, the Wi-Fi on the school bus can be multiplied for other technologies. Okay? All right, these are examples, or this is one example of what a box looks like to include this. We just kind of wanted to show it to you. This is the Catalyst IR model made by Cisco. It's got 4 gigs of memory. This one is certified for automotive use. It's got 1 SIM slot versus 2. And it's also got advanced tracking. So that's another technology as you talk about where is the bus. Now a lot of these buses coming out of the manufacturer now have GPS built in them, but some districts will run these buses for 20, 25, 30 years and just their technology is gone. So when you start plugging in technology like this, you can keep track of the bus as well. All right. So I go back and I want you to look at eRate funding eligibility items. Not only is the device eligible, but the other things that are eligible are the service to the device. So the cost to the wireless provider, which is huge. I mean, real huge. Things that are not eRate eligible would be any extended warranties or services that we would put on top of that, as well as Cisco umbrella or WAN support. So that's something that you'd have to have on your own and when we connect things together, okay? But I'd say the nuts and bolts and or the most critical items to make the job happen are covered. The expected lifespan out of something like this, just to give you an idea, would really be no different than your cell phone. But these things have been tested to the extent that the idea is to give you 5 years. I don't think you've kept a cell phone, most of you, for 5 years. Maybe you have. But that's a game where people are always chasing the next best thing. Same thing with a Chromebook, but 5 years is kind of the magic number. Why? Because it aligns with your cycle, right? Every 5 years, you refresh the cycle, okay? Hard to see, but third-party, other things to talk about, just to kind of give you a sense. 2-way radios can ride on this. Ruggedized cameras in school bus. That's big in metropolitan cities where they've got some trouble with. We were talking about vape detectors earlier, right? So they can keep an eye on that type of stuff. The bus health, so paging, accidents, etc. When you think about the health of the bus and or the maintenance that's needed with the bus. Parents tracking apps, so I talked about kids getting on and off the bus and whether they're not in the right ones. They're now overlaying technology or software into apps that will not only show you the homework that the kid's done and hasn't done, the grade of the kid in the class, but hey, where is my kid exactly now, right? And building the tracking mechanism or the Bluetooth technology into the student ID. So it's getting real creative. I can tell you my 3 aren't getting away with much, not near as much as I got away with, that's for sure. I think it's only getting more complicated for a kid today in school, as you were saying, vape detectors in particular. So, and then student and employee security just always comes to the top of mind. We just had a school board election where I live, and this was the #1 thing that everybody wanted to run on was student employee security. I had one person come by my house and to ask for the vote, and I said, "Tell me exactly what that means." They had no idea that I worked in schools and technology, etc. And it was really hard for them to articulate it, very hard for them. But they used it as a platform, so I think we all know exactly what that means. All right. That was the majority of the slides. Again, I didn't want it to be a sales pitch versus as much to say, hey, you have tools and resources at your disposal. You have so many tools and resources at your disposal, it's hard to keep track of them. Impossible to keep track of them. And so where we try to find a fit in helping you is become the trusted advisor to say, what are your needs, wants, and desires? Can we solve it for you? If we can, great, we will. If we can't, we'll help you find somebody that can solve it for you. But this is a big topic that I think if you haven't heard about already, you're going to hear about very quickly. It's ramping up fast, very fast. And not just in rural communities, but in inner city communities as well, depending on the metro you live in. All for different reasons, but providing the same universal solution through a universal platform or technology that's very customized to the end results.